Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night. Hope everybody had a better start to the week on Monday than you did on Sunday, though one could hardly blame you if you did. There's a really lingering effect from this Titans loss to the Eagles, and something that you're going to hear from Mike Vrabel about later on in the show. The idea of what's it going to take to be able to change the things, the biggest things that are the problem on this roster right now. We're going to discuss that fix if one such thing exists. And we'll also talk about what plays they are capable of making at this stage. We'll discuss playoff implications because now the AFC has reshuffled a little bit with some of the results that took place on Sunday. And given that the Monday night game between the Saints and the Buccaneers is not an AFC game, it felt like a good time to kind of refresh that conversation. Before we get started, though, would love you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, wherever you are spending your time with us. We are very happy to have you. If you are on Twitter, please retweet the show. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That is in the bottom left. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already, and we would be grateful for you that way. Don't forget to throw a like on the video if you would be kind enough to do so. With that being said, we can go ahead and get this primetime show off and rolling. Welcome into A to Z Sports Primetime from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I am proud as always, thrilled as always, to be presented to you by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com. That's where you go for your dream address without the stress. GaryAshton.com for that Intel edge. Two Rivers Ford. In stock 2023 model year Fords available for you to test drive right now. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. TrueMav Fitness, the place that you can go to get your fitness journey started. You'll feel better. You will have more energy. You will be in a better mood once you get your goals attained, courtesy of TrueMavFitness.com and Superbook Sports, where you go to wager on all the action, basketball, football, hockey, whatever you are after at this time. Any major sport you can wager on in the Superbook Sports app. So, Mike Vrabel was asked a couple of questions today that it does bear worth running back, because Monday press conferences, I always find to be a lot more informative than the immediate postgame. Mike's had the opportunity to see things from a different angle. Sideline, you don't really see a whole lot, given how much of the field there is to cover and how many different parts and pieces are working at one given point. So Mondays, I always find to be a more valuable experience. And in discussing a couple of things today, obviously, you have to go through and talk about everything that went wrong before you can talk about how to correct these things. It's not any kind of grand realization. That's just the nature of any kind of problem solving. And they have a fair amount of problems that they have to solve. But no bigger problem right now than the inability to play to their strengths, because their strengths aren't really delivering right now. Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons, two different kinds of strengths, but indisputably at their heights, the best players on their respective side of the ball. Now, you could debate whether Derrick Henry is still the most important player for the Titans on offense, the most important skill, non-quarterback, let's call it, because obviously the offensive line plays a great deal of importance in this as well. So I'd like to start with your Two Rivers Ford take on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. What is the Titans' identity right now? You give me your response in the comment section. We'll discuss at length together right after I remind you that the Two Rivers Ford take, as always, is made possible by Two Rivers Ford. So many great new model year 2023 Fords for you to test drive on the lot. Go check it out in Mount Juliet and experience what it is to be a Two Rivers Ford customer for yourself. You will love it the same way that I did, because you will never feel pressured throughout the course of the car search and car buying process. Their sales staff does not work on commission. They're making a paycheck whether they sell you a car or not. So you're not constantly being hounded. And Two Rivers Ford always sells all non-specialty Ford vehicles below MSRP. You're always going to get a great deal and a great rate when you finance with Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So what would you say the Titans' identity is right now, and how easy do you think that is a thing to adjust? This was Mike Vrabel's comments on it earlier today.
With the lack of space that has been there for Derek over the last 4 weeks, do you think your offense needs a shift in identity, and is that possible to do this late into the season?
I think you have to be careful. What identity would we want to go with is, I guess, the question. We have to understand what we think wins in this league, and I'm going to remind you that it's taking care of the football, it's running the football, and it's being efficient when you pass it. And those are the three things for the past 25 years in this league that has won. And so that's what I want our identity to be, because I know that that's what wins. And when we've won, we've done those things. And so maybe we could have run the ball a little better. We didn't turn it over. Neither did they. So we didn't do enough defensively. We clearly didn't affect their quarterback. We had a 90-some rating. He had 130. So that's what I stand by. That's what I coach and teach every day. And that's what I'm trying to get our team to do.
So that's Mike Vrabel talking about, okay, so what's it going to take? What identity would we go with, right? How do they play to their strengths on the roster when the roster is designed a certain kind of way? He listed off the things that he knows to be successful, right? 25 years in the NFL. If you don't turn the ball over, if you continue to play good defense, if you get turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, very fundamentally basic things, because football is not difficult. It's just detailed. The details of all of this are what, win things in the margins. But right now, it's not even in the margins where they're losing. They're just flat out losing their one-on-one opportunities, whether you're a defensive back, an offensive lineman, a wide receiver without Treylon Burks. They struggle significantly. And the idea that changing an identity is gonna be such a simple fix, the case for that does not really exist at this time. So when I ask you, what is the Titans' identity right now, I would say they're a bit of a the identity of the Titans, and I hesitate to say this, but without Danico Autry and without Derrick Henry playing behind a competent offensive line, they look kind of like has-beens, right? They have been one of the AFC's best teams. They continue to be successful and, again, are going to win their division in all likelihood. But they're playing with a lot of parts that used to work really, really well together at a high level. The defense still does when Jeff is right and when Danico is right. But I think for me, has-been is kind of the word until they prove otherwise. Because right now, I'm looking at a team that, had to come from behind, 2 touchdowns, 14 points, come from behind to beat the Seattle Seahawks on the road and do it in overtime, right? This team beat Kansas City and Buffalo last year. It's not the same kind of issues. Has-been feels like the word for me. A to Z Sports Prime Time, as always, is presented by our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com to get the intel edge you need to succeed. Nobody does it better. Nobody makes your life easier. Whether you're selling your home, sell for more with Gary Ashton. Whether you're trying to find your dream address without the stress, Gary can help you do that too, just as he has done for me and so many other. It's probably in the millions by now. Millions of people over the course of Gary's career here in Middle Tennessee making it happen with that intel edge you need to succeed, courtesy of the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators and of A to Z Sports Prime Time. So that identity, that notion of being a has-been. The question is, how do they respond? Vrabel gave that crossroads answer last night where it was just kind of like, okay, we've got a mindset. We can go backwards. We can go forwards. How do we move forwards? What's it going to take for us to come together and move forward, to find ways to turn individual weaknesses into group strengths, or at least to do well to protect one another from those individual weaknesses being exposed? They have shown themselves capable of doing that. It's definitely been a lot harder this year. Nobody needs to relitigate the A.J. Brown thing, and I went almost halfway through the radio show without even bringing him up today because it's just so much more layered than that at this point for Tennessee. And so as you keep those things in mind, that's the kind of discussion that they're having internally. All right, how do we get you guys to maximize your potential even further? Because because right now they need all the help that they can get, and it's coming in places that are few and far between. So let's talk about the idea of stepping up and starting to churn some things. They signed Terrell Basham earlier today. Eric Fisher, the left tackle who many of you, I think, desired, signed with the Miami Dolphins. Austin Jackson there. I don't remember if Austin Jackson was a first-round pick, but he's not been a good NFL player thus far. He has been put on injured reserve, and so forcing them to make a move. Now, Eric Fisher is not a good player, but the idea, Mike Vrabel, he was asked about the offensive line situation. You're going to hear that right after I remind you that A to Z Sports Primetime is made possible by the wonderful people at TrueMav Fitness. Worth and his crew of coaches and personal trainers, they're going to get you on your feet, get you active, get you moving, get you pushing yourself without overexerting yourself in ways that, a lot of us fear or makes a lot of us uncomfortable. I know once I started to get back into a workout routine, it was tough for me, both mentally and physically, because I was in pretty bad shape. You guys know I'm down about 37 pounds right now because of the strategies employed by TrueMav Fitness. They have all manner of ways for you to work out, whether it's the group classes, whether it is the personal training, or an open gym for you to work out at your leisure. TrueMav Fitness has any number of memberships and will give you your first workout free at TrueMavFitness.com, conveniently located in downtown Nashville in the Gulch. So, as we look at the situation for the Tennessee Titans on the offensive line, what do you make of the idea that they have found 16 different players at defensive back to play for this roster this year? But once they landed on Dennis Daly, they really decided that they were going to ride it out. Now, I think left tackle is different than playing defensive back. I think that left tackle requires more stability. I think offensive line in general requires more stability, more continuity, and more time spent to try and figure out if a group can gel. But what we saw of Dennis Daly and Aaron Brewer, frankly, yesterday, again reiterated the fact that this team is just simply not prepared for what lies ahead of it and trying to keep that quarterback upright. 5 sacks, 9 total pressures just allowed by the left side. A really, really difficult slog for them to get anything done, no matter what the plays are, no matter who the coordinator is, which I know a lot of you guys like to gravitate back towards. So Mike Vrabel was asked about this offensive line earlier today, and can they find any outside help? This was prior, by the way, to Eric Fisher being signed.
That were here with the Dennis and the options that are here. With those defensive backs, you had a ton of guys who are contributing here who weren't here. So I think my question is, why aren't you looking outside for offensive line help the way you looked outside for defensive back help when all of those defensive backs have done such a terrific job helping?
You have an option of finding guys on somebody's practice squad that you can poach. You have the option to sign guys off the street, which I don't know what would be there. We're looking for players that are there. We've signed a lot of guys off other people's practice squad that are playing for us. So at some point, we got to figure if they're not playing for them, they're going to play for us.
Mike Vrabel talking about the offensive line situation and where they might find help at this point, because it has been a slog for them. Let's wrap things up talking about who the Titans might see in the postseason. Updated AFC standings based on how this thing went down. Let's talk about them together. Who would you rather see the Titans play in the first round? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Please go ahead and form us, and we'll get into it right after I tell you about the people who make the Primetime Show possible. As always, of course, that is Superbook Sports. Superbook is where you go to wager on all the NFL action. They'll match your first bet up to $1,000, win or lose. Superbook Sports has the best odds boost and promo bets around, and they will get you covered. So download the Superbook app today. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So which team would you want to see in the first round, given that the Titans have dropped now from the 3 seed to the 4? It's a complicated question because Baltimore, even without Lamar Jackson, held serve. They continue to lead their division. Cincinnati had a big win over Kansas City at home on Sunday. They are currently the 5 spot. Buffalo is the new number 1 by nature of the Kansas City loss, and Kansas City now drops to 2. Miami also a wild card at this point after suffering a defeat at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers and a couple of quarterback injuries in that game as well. Everybody's a mess right now. But I think the thing that I come back to the most is that Cincinnati would be the current matchup, but it should be fairly easy, given that Lamar's week to week, for Cincinnati to overtake Baltimore for the AFC North and then drop Baltimore into the 5 seed, which the Titans, as the 4, would then host.
As of right now, it doesn't seem so bad. Still getting an MRI, still waiting on results. We'll see what that ends up being. But from what I am told, before the MRI, the hope was that it was just a sprain, relatively mild, and then if he misses time, which certainly is possible here, if he misses time, it would probably be just 1 game. That is the hope, that is the belief going into the MRI. If the MRI reveals more damage, then obviously we will address that, and that would be much worse for the Baltimore Ravens. But some optimism certainly that he'd be back sooner rather than later.
So Lamar dealing with that injury makes that race more complicated and more likely to go in Cincinnati's favor. Baltimore is the ideal first-round matchup based on what the postseason picture looks like right now. That's got to be the answer to the question. The Ravens are having similar offensive struggles. They don't have a top wide receiver. They, in fact, traded their top wide receiver away, as did the Titans this offseason. Rashad Bateman has been hurt for a considerable amount of time. Baltimore is also struggling with offensive line issues. There are a lot of similarities in two teams who like to play a different form of running a running game and great defense, but the parallels are obviously there. Now, getting Baltimore obviously has a favorable history for them when they play at Tennessee, and certainly the most recent one in 2020 went that way as well. So I think that can be the only answer at this particular point in time, and you just kind of keep your fingers crossed that the Chargers don't make things more problematic, or that Jacksonville in one of these 2 games remaining, and Houston potentially with 1 more left on the board at Nashville, that they don't make your life a little harder than need be. That's going to do it for us tonight on A to Z Sports Prime Time. Always appreciate you guys spending your Sunday through Thursday evenings with us. Back in time to let you catch the second half of the Saints and the Buccaneers. So enjoy Monday Night Football. Radio show tomorrow at Nissan Stadium for the Toy Field event that 104.5 The Zone, my radio station, always does. It'll be a lot of fun. If you want to stop by and bring an unwrapped gift for a child in need, it would be phenomenal to see you and for you to support a great cause that I know so many of you go out of your way to give to anyway. Have a great rest of your night, and I will talk to you tomorrow on the radio, and if not, on A to Z Sports Prime Time.
There's Matt. All right, we haven't scored a point since I came in here. I am gone, guys.
What?
That's
it?
We got a couple more questions.
No, that's it.
Peace out by the GM.